Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at Art School Live. My name is Kari Stober. I am the Pastel Today community manager for our newsletter Pastel Today. And my guest for today is Fiona Carvell from the United Kingdom, from England. She's going to tell you exactly where she is. So if we could have Fiona join us, that would be wonderful. Hi, Fiona. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm really good.
Where in the UK are you?
I am in Northumberland, and so that is in the north of England, right on the border with Scotland. So yeah, that's where we are.
Very cool. I've always wanted to go there, so hopefully one day I'll get to travel and come see you.
Mm-hmm.
Fiona, what are you going to share with us today?
We're going to look at introducing texture into still life work and how to tackle light as well.
I am super excited. I was looking at some of Fiona's paintings this week, and the amount of texture she can capture in her shadows is pretty awesome. So you guys need to really pay attention to what she's doing. They're stunning.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are going to roll the show.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes.
Well, that was quick. As you've probably noticed, I am not Eric Rhodes. He is on vacation today, off doing something fun, I'm sure. I am Kari Stober. I've been with Streamline for about 12 years now, and most recently, my new title is Pastel Community Ambassador for our newsletter Pastel Today, which I'm super excited about because I love pastel. I am a pastel artist, not as good as any of the faculty that we have, but I still love it and I'm passionate about it. And today our guest is Fiona Carvell. She is going to be sharing with us today some wonderful techniques on capturing shadows for your still lifes, and hers are absolutely amazing. I definitely encourage you to check her out and listen to everything she says because it's awesome, and I'm super excited for today. So Fiona, let's get to it.
Right, okay, so you can see this is a piece that I've already started. I'm part of the way through. We've got mussel shells here. If you want an idea of size here, it's around about 12 inches by 13. It's around about that. So it's quite big. But I'm doing some parts of this picture in great detail. And then others, I'm introducing different kinds of texture to separate the objects from the background, if you like, and it also brings in an element of added interest, really, to something that might be quite straightforward otherwise. I have to emphasize that if you check my work out, that I don't really count myself as being a realist, particularly. I do tend to kind of change things a little bit, leave things out, add things, sometimes include stuff that isn't there as well. So I'll kind of play around with reality, if you like, and adjust things. But this is quite a detailed piece as well.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I am going to be doing a little bit of contrasting work here. I'm going to be working firstly on this shell here because I can see that there's going to be some really lovely kind of shadows and contrasting colors in there, which is lovely to do. But then also working into the background as well as some of these shells here, just to show you different approaches. So that means, you know, using different techniques and different ways of applying the pastel as well, because things like weight and how much you press into the paper and how much you don't, you kind of leave off, can give quite different results. Okay, so I'm starting off, I've actually got a pastel pencil here. So some of this work is going to be in pastel pencil, predominantly soft pastel, and that is because I really like the density and the richness of the soft pastel, but I use pastel pencils to kind of outline, to draw things out, to plot things, and to give really, really fine details. So
do you, when you use the pastel pencils, is that always underneath and then soft pastels on top, or
both?
Both? Okay.
I'm a great believer in there are no rules. Some people do underpainting, some people don't. Sometimes I do underpainting. Today I'm not. I'm a great believer in just kind of working in a way that kind of suits the particular subject.
Mm-hmm.
So on this occasion, I'm going straight into laying the color down without any base. I'll be using pastel pencil to begin with, then soft pastel on top of that, and then more pastel pencil on top as well. So chopping and changing, really, where you want to. Now, something else I'm going to bring up before I start is the debate about the color black. Is it a color or not, and all that kind of stuff. By and large, yes, I do believe in the kind of the theory that black should be avoided because it kind of can deaden things. But there are always exceptions, and there are always times where I think you can combine it with other tones to add depth. And sometimes there are subject matters that you have to go there a little bit, and I think this is one of them.
Well, I think it's kind of like, you know, how some artists only use white for an accent. I mean, I think you can apply the same technique to black. It's the opposite.
Yeah,
those, you know, those deep shadows.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of black here, and I'm just going to put that in just ever so gently to begin with, on the edge of this shell here. Now, what I'm doing, you can hear how gritty this is just giving a little bit of a base, because I don't want to be too clunky with this, because it is very fine, and it's quite detailed, but I have to emphasize this will not be kind of what it ends up looking like. This is almost like I'm giving myself a bit of a guide. So I'm looking for, if I stop talking halfway through, by the way, I'm just concentrating a lot, right? I'm looking for the darkest areas and for little points where I have to almost remind myself that's where the darkest bits are. So when I'm working on anything, I kind of work to the process of loosely from dark to light. But in this case, if you think about it, each one of these little shells is a painting within its own right.
Right.
So I'm starting with the darkest parts, and I'm going to get lighter. So I'll do that on that shell. I'll do it on the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so on. Okay. Sometimes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is that 400 grit paper?
I think it's 600, this one. So it's a little bit finer. I think doing a 400 at this size might be a little bit of a challenge because of the amount of detail that's in there. So yeah, and I'm going to try and not get too mucky with stuff. I tend to sometimes. So I'm just lightly putting in a little bit of that there. Okay.
Fiona, you have Pamela here who's saying hi from Cramlington, Northumberland.
Oh, hi, just down the road. Small world. So I've got a dark blue here. So I'm going to look for, I'm following those little bits that I've already got there. And I'm going to add bits in here. Now I have to say that you might not think this, but I'm actually not very patient.
Neither am I.
And sometimes when I'm doing a really, really detailed picture like this, especially if it's quite a big one, like I've done some of these things where they're like a meter high, which is what's a meter high? A couple of feet high, maybe. And I'll do it in my running gear, because when all the tension gets too much, I have to run outside and go mad for a bit.
That's smart, actually.
Yeah. And I do work very loosely sometimes. I don't always work in a very, very tight, detailed way, but it's just for this, it's just appropriate and necessary. But it's quite nice just to mix it up a little bit and work in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to come around here. So I'm not being too concerned if things get a little bit wobbly here and there, because we know that we can take things out, we can go over things. What's one of the greatest things about pastel is that if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. But often often when I talk to people that are just starting out and they'll say, oh, I've taken up watercolor, I'll be like, are you crazy? You know how hard watercolor is? You make a mistake and you have to start all over again, but not with pastel. It's much more flexible. So that's going to go into there. So this is quite rough just now around the edges there. So I'm going to be very, very careful here. And I often advocate little finger blending. Now, the reason why I do that, I don't often blend much at all, but if I do, I'll try to use my little finger, is because if it's very delicate, you're much less likely to kind of prod it.
Right.
Okay? You'll be much lighter with it, as long as you've got a reasonable amount of control over what your hand's doing, yeah? You'll be a much kind of lighter touch if you do that. I'm just going to clean my fingers there, because it's another thing that I always nag my students to do, is make sure you clean your fingers, especially when you've been using dark colors, because you don't want to drag that color all over your pastels or onto your picture. So you do have to stop now again. So just excuse me there, I'm just cleaning up my fingers. Good. Okay, right. So next area I'm looking at is round here. So this isn't done yet. I've just kind of blocked it in because I'm going to go back to it with some pencil. So in here, I've got some sort of grey blues. There's some really nice colors in there. So I'm going to pick out a couple there. So this one's quite a strong blue. So I'll try that out and see what that's like. I quite like that one. And don't worry if at this stage it all looks quite kind of heavy or a bit too dark, because it's going to get lightened up. Now, one thing I do sort of try and encourage people to do is, when you're drawing things out, even in the early stages like this, is to think about something I call the direction of growth, which is a bit weird, but it can kind of apply to, if you think about vegetables or, you know, anything that's kind of organic, but it applies to this as well, to a mussel shell that's been formed. Think about how I've got a scoop here, yeah? I've got a curve because of, if you look at the reference picture over here, you've got like a shadow happening that, and it's so important that you get your lines in there very early on to try and make sure that it's echoing that growth, that direction of how it's being formed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. It's something often I do with, if I'm teaching kids, I'll get them to pick up a piece of fruit and run their hands all the way around it, feel the weight of it, pick it up and down, throw it from hand to hand, to really feel the 3 dimensions of it. Now, this is something that if you can hold in your head the physical sensation of what something feels like as you're painting it, it's going to really help. Okay.
I've never thought of it in that way, but yeah. I mean, because artists use, you know, brush strokes to try to create that, you know, that form. So this is our way of trying to, you know, do something similar. I had a question from Danielle. What did you use to create your drawing? Is that charcoal, or is that did you use a pastel pencil?
Pastel pencil, yeah. Yeah. So all pastel. I think if I'm doing something like a landscape, I might use charcoal, because it can kind of add a bit more shadow, but something like this that is quite precise, and I just really needed outlines.
Right.
So yeah, we just go with pastel pencil for that. So I'm just putting in a little bit in here. So the next bit, I think it needs a little bit of grey in there. So this is like a lilac-y grey. Now, the other thing that I have to sort of mention is I've printed out my reference picture here, but actually I do tend to look at my references on a monitor, on a screen, because printers don't always get all the colours that are there. And preferably, my favourite way is actually doing everything from life, because of course you get all the true colours with that. So if I ever can, I'll draw directly from what's in front of me.
And is this how you do all of your still life paintings, one individual thing at a time, not a particular color in different places at one time?
Oh, sometimes I dot around, yeah. It really depends on what the subject matter is. Sometimes, I mean, if I'm doing something like, certainly if I'm doing something like a seascape or a landscape, they'll be right across the whole thing, you know, pick up one color, where does it go? It goes everywhere, kind of thing. This is just because it's very contained. This is a very detailed piece. And I might, if I start dotting about too much, I mean, you can see it's starting to happen over here. I'm starting to kind of, you know, you have to be quite careful. I don't want to get it too mucky and drag things. So it is a very sort of delicate, slower way of working. I mean, say I don't always work like this at all, but when this is just what I'm working on just now, so it's what you guys have got. I hope it's okay.
Oh no, it's great.
So I'm slowly gonna just blend that a tiny bit, tiny bit.
Fiona, I've got a question from Carl. He's asking, with detailed realism like this, when you're using pastels, how do you remove accidental pastel dust off a highly detailed area?
Oh, okay. A couple of things. You could use a hairdryer to start off with. So you just blow it, so you don't actually touch anything. So that's a good way. So if you've still got stuff that's kind of stubbornly there and won't go anywhere, I use a little brush. Okay, just a little soft watercolor brush, and just very, very gently, just like flick bits off and then correct. So you can use brushes as well, so that's really useful.
Sorry, I'm taking notes as you do this so I can remember later.
Okay, so I need a bit of a warmer color up there, so I'm just going to look. You have a million colors, right? And then sometimes you think, I don't have the one I want.
Oh, that's all the time with me, especially with the neutral colors. I'm like, nope, it's too cold, it's too warm.
Yeah,
right one.
Yeah.
So when you run into that situation, how do you correct that? Do you just go with a different color? Do you go with a different value?
I try to always stick with the same sort of, I mean, the tonal value is the most important thing, really.
Right.
You can kind of, you know, once you've got that, and once you kind of appreciate what that means, it's like, you know, how dark or light something should be, very simply. Then, you know, you've got a little bit of flexibility in what you put down. I've got a little bit of kind of lilac-y pink here. So sometimes you won't have exactly the right color. I mean, that's often it's always, I think, the way. If I'm outside doing plein air, and you'll pack everything the day before, and then you get there and it's just really not right. But the good thing about pastel as well is that you can kind of mix things a little bit. Now you see here, I've got a line here and I don't like what that's doing. I know it's like really tiny, but I'm just gonna tidy that up a little bit there with a brush, you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever use those the rubber blender sticks?
I don't, to be honest. No. Perhaps in the early stages, I'll use an eraser to, you know, if I put a line in the wrong place when I'm planning it out, but that's about it. I don't really tend to erase very much, but I think that's just with practice, really. And there's no kind of absolute rights and wrongs.
Yeah.
I've got, this is actually a very dark brown. So that on your screens might look as though it's black, but it's not. That's very dark blue. And this is very dark brown up here. going to do just a little bit more work on this bit, but I'm going to jump to do some of this stuff over here, so you can see how I work differently on different areas, because I think that's kind of the key thing that I wanted to share, was that you don't have to work in exactly the same way across one picture. You can use different techniques and approaches in different parts for different reasons, to help emphasize something, or in this case to try and bring out the texture of something a bit more. So just got, this is like a browny nutty color. I think that's a bit round there. So in comparison to these other ones, this will look very rough right now. That's because I'm going to kind of tweak it and tidy it up a little bit. I've got a bit of blue pastel pencil here. I'll start to, that's navy blue. And I don't mind sometimes when I get bits of the paper coming through, sometimes that can actually work, and just leave it, you know. So I'd start to kind of, and I'll put a little bit of that into here as well. And around there. And sometimes I'll kind of put a little bit in, and I might move things and change things a bit. They're not always exactly the same as the photograph. I think that's another big thing as well, giving yourself permission to not follow the photograph.
That artistic license.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I think especially when you're starting out, that can be quite daunting.
Yeah, I've definitely found that, where it's, you know, I see it there and I'm like, I have to paint it because it's there, even though I don't want it to be there. Yeah,
yeah. But you know what? Even the constable used to, do you know, he used to move trees about in his landscapes.
I did
that
not.
Weren't there, and he kind of invent stuff, and you know, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, right, okay, this is fine. And I think it's also what makes your work yours, and it's not just, you know, it's not just a complete replica, it's something else.
Exactly. Fiona, someone asked, Neil asked how you plan out your warms and cools. You're just doing that based on the reference photo, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, when I take photographs for things, I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, I'll either draw, I'll either work, say, directly from life, which I'll still do the same thing, or I'll take a photograph, which I have done here. But in both cases, I'll set up the lighting to create shadows, which they haven't just happened by accident. They're there, they're set, they've been designed and put there. But I'm lucky because I used to work in TV broadcasting, and so I worked with lighting cameramen for quite a while, so I know a little bit about lighting, and I kind of apply that now to setting up a still life. So the light and how it is and the shadows is very much part of the composition. So that's where the warms and the cooler tones come in as well. So they will be kind of influenced by, you know, what the lighting is, I guess. I'm just looking for the right blue. Oh, I've got it. Here it is. Okay, so I'm getting into lighter colors in here. And I'm not going to worry too much, say, just now. It's a little bit messy, that's fine. I tend to kind of think about the way I work as being, it's almost like I stick all the color down and then I move it around a bit. Almost in quite a painterly way. I suppose that's what painters do a bit.
Right.
And yeah, so that's kind of where you get a similarity in process between, that's why it's called pastel painting in part, I guess, isn't it? Because
yes,
you have this kind of crossover in process, which is so interesting. So I've got a bit of, this is like a sandy golden color, so I'm going to start putting that into here.
Fiona, Danielle asked about the shadows. You're gonna talk about shadows in a little bit.
Yeah.
perfect. I'm super
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
for that part.
In a second, yeah. So I'll jump over there in a minute because I don't want to kind of run out of time with that. I'm going to put a tiny little bit of this and then I'll go over do some shadow stuff. So you can kind of see where this is going. So I think the key thing with something like this, where you've got these beautiful pearly insides of the shells, is to try and get that lovely smooth texture. So as I build these layers up, there's going to be more going into
Wow,
this.
that looks fantastic already.
But be gently kind of blending in those little bits where it needs it, and then also teasing out areas where you need a little bit more fine detail. And I think that's one of the keys to still life, is trying to recognize differences in textures and shapes, and you know, treat them in slightly different ways. I'm going to jump over here because I know that's not done, but right. So over here I've got a shadow sort of area happening. Now I don't know if you can see this, but at the top here it's a lot more sort of texture put into that already. Now in the photograph it's kind of looking quite blue, but I wanted to bring in some colors that are going to sit nicely and complement with the mussel shell. So I've made it a little bit more greenish, but then it's going to slowly fade into being more blue with a little bit of lilac in there as well. So I tend to kind of pick out a few complementary colors that are all going to fit together. So here I've got it's kind of a lilac color down here, and that's going to be sitting underneath a shadow color. So it'll be made up in layers almost. So there's a little bit of that, and there's a bit of that stuff just on the edge, I think. I'm going to put that there, and then I need a very pale blue. So this is going to come on the top. So I'm being really quite loose, so completely different to how I'm working here. And that's because I want to have a different sort of outcome, really. It's going to build up to be more solid, but this area here, I don't even just see there, I have actually got a very light layer of pastel. I'm going to put a bit more on there. I want the texture of the paper to come through. So that's going to be the differences of, you know, how a shell is, and you've got the softness and the iridescence inside, but then the outside of the shells have got much more detail in them, but very hard. And then you've got a softness happening in the background with texture coming through, much more broken up, and then layered areas of shadow that are flecked with different colors to kind of break up the light. So it's not just one solid color.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Totally are. That's how I've always kind of approached my shadows. I'm like, oh, it's a solid color. That's that color. So I love, when I was looking at your paintings, just the amount of texture and differentiation you have in your shadows. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. But I kind of look at the shadows as being a kind of a key compositional element, that they're just as important as the objects. And the whole thing wouldn't look the same if I didn't, you know, do something that was fitted. Yeah.
And just for those that are watching, since this is soft pastel, how hard or soft are you touching the paper? I know the answer, but not everyone watching might know the answer.
I'm being very, very loose and light here. Very, very loose. Firmer in here, but not very hard at all. I'm kind of deliberately being quite scribbly here. And that's because I want the colors to kind of all blend in together in an organic way. I don't want it to look, you know, forced. So if I do that, and then I'm going to blend that in. So even though I'm blending this means you're going to get kind of uneven irregularities, I guess. is happening. And that's okay. That's quite intentional. I find that quite interesting when, you know, some bits are a little bit different to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry if you've got little blips like that. Go away. I can fix that later. So I've now got, this is a very pale greeny sort of colour. Is that the same one I've got there? No, I need to go and pick a different one. It's not that one. Oh, it's this one. Okay, I think it might be that one. That's better. So I'm going to lay some of this, it's more kind of greeny, on top here. Just slightly. And I really like that I've got some lilac in here as well underneath it coming through. So I think in a way when I'm doing something like this, I feel that there's some kind of constraint with doing the objects, if you like. That's the bit that kind of drives me nuts. But then I get to have a bit of fun with the more kind of experimental shadowy bits, I suppose.
Do you always go directional when you're making those strokes in the shadows?
I think so, yeah. And it really depends on what the viewpoint is. Because I might end up going different ways as well on top of that eventually. But I just kind of see, you know, how it pans out to begin with. I don't have a specific formula, I suppose.
Just kind of what you're feeling.
Yeah. And what suits the viewpoint. Sometimes if you're looking at something at an angle and it's kind of going away from you, then the lines would be more diagonal, yeah, to kind of emphasize a plane. So here I'm looking directly down on it. So the lines are probably going to be that way or this way. Probably that would make more sense to me. Just to kind of reflect what's going on. So in here, I've got it in the background there. So I need to have something that's, I'm going to have to snap a pastel in half. Doesn't that make you sad when you have to do it? Oh,
It does. It breaks my heart. I had
it kills me every time.
Brand new set and just broke each one, and
yeah.
me dies each time.
So I've got it. That's it. Okay. So this is like a neutral, but it's quite a warm. It's got a hint of kind of peachy color in it, I guess. And what's quite nice about when you snap a pastel, you get a nice hard edge. So you can use that to, you know, do detail bits and get round into little corners that might be a little bit tricky to do. So I'm going to loosely put that in, but up here you see I've got blue in there and I've got kind of creamy yellow coming down into that as well. And that'll come down here.
Fiona, I figured out which painting it was that I was looking at on your site. It's called Fallen. And
right, yeah.
Yeah, I love that one. In there, your shadows, the directionality of your strokes goes along with the way the light is going. And it's really
yeah, that's it. Yeah, there. I think you guys call them buckeyes. Is that right?
That's what. Okay, yes, I didn't see. I didn't make that connection. I'm from Ohio, so Buckeye is the big thing there.
Yeah, and I think that's what you call them there. We call them conkers, horse chestnut seeds.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But I remember I described them as conkers to an American friend, and she just looked at me blankly. What? No, buckeyes. Oh, right. So I've got this. Looks a little bit scary, right? It's really, really bright. But I'm going to put this in here because that's going to make a great base for a very bright color. There's going to be a warm shadow, this one, and so I put quite strong colors down sometimes and then layer them up with pale ones as well, you know, to soften it. So that's going to end up being quite soft and pale later on. So the kind of stage that you're seeing at just now is a kind of interim, I guess. this is more finished over here, so you can kind of see where it's headed. And this is kind of like in process. I just wanted to show you, you know, different stages you can kind of go through, and just considering like working in different ways in different parts of your picture for different reasons, and not just necessarily doing the whole thing in the same way.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my downfall always has been. I mean, I've only been I would say I play with pastels for the last 10 years, but actively painting the last 3. And
Yeah.
I've noticed that that's definitely something that I've struggled with.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their own way of doing things. And I think that's what's really important as well. I think especially for a beginner, you sort of think, oh, I'm doing this wrong, or I'm not doing this right, you know.
Right.
But, you know, you have to find what's comfortable for you, and that's what's more important than anything. So I always say, you know, look at what everybody else is doing, have a go, but, you know, what works at the end of the day is what works for you.
Right.
I'm using this brush just here just to help to bring in some of those.
You said that's a soft watercolor brush?
Yeah, it's just a really tiny little one, but it's just soft enough just to brush off bits that you don't want. So I've got this is the blue pastel pencil here. I'm going to put in a little bit in there. So I hope I'm not jumping around too much for you here. I just want to try and pass on information for you. And that's going to come over here a bit more. And I've got
making me excited to get my pencils out again. I haven't used them.
Yeah, they're some things I hardly use them at all. But something like this, I think, yeah, they're actually really useful, and I might just get them out and they can be your friend when you need them.
Neil is asking, that watercolor brush, is it synthetic or is it a sable?
Oh, goodness me. Oh, I'm looking at the handle and it's saying 100% FSC, whatever that means. I think it might, it's probably a sable, I would think. Yeah, at a guess, but I can't say for sure. Sorry, I'm not being very helpful on that one. I've got a little bit of kind of greeny gold color here. I'm going to put that in. And the other thing that I'm quite passionate about is that still life can actually be exciting and not dull.
Right.
And you know, it's yeah, it can be adventurous, and it's just kind of how you approach it, and you know, have fun with it. I have to confess, I'm holding my breath when I'm doing this bit. Okay, this bit around here needs a little bit of darkening down. In there. I'm going to find it's a little bit more of a different color in there, I think. So I've got this, I don't want no grey, nope. Another one, pastel pencil there. Fill this bit in here. So it's going to need a little bit more work on this to kind of tidy it up to make it happy with the rest of the shells here. You can kind of see where it's going. Sometimes I'll leave quite rough edges, but they'll disappear when I fill in the next bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is a kind of a little bit of a it's quite unusual seeing me working like this, because on most of my demonstrations I'll go right across everything, and you know, it's quite free and different. This just happens to be something that's a bit more detailed, but you don't actually often get to see this, so you guys are very lucky.
Well, I think it's helpful to kind of see it in this way for those that are just starting out.
Yeah. So I've got more of a golden yellow, so I need to put some of that into here.
One thing I've learned recently with choosing pastels is, you know, you don't really know what a color looks like until you lay it down till the next color. And when you know, some of those, when you first picked them up, you're like, oh, that's really bright. But then putting it next to that gray, it works. It's harmonized. Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, another tip you can do is have a little test strip along the side of your picture, and just, you know, have a scribble, put things down, try them out. If you're a bit tentative about, is it going to work? Is that the right color? Try it out on a little scrap bit of paper just to see what you think before you commit it to the paper. And then you're not going to kind of waste bits and things and get, you know, frustrated with stuff. Hopefully it can help. I just don't do it that much now, just because I've had a lot of practice, I guess. So it's starting to look more like the picture. And very, very gently, you can very, very, very lightly just drag past. I'm hardly touching that at all.
I am very heavy-handed, so that is a struggle for me.
Yeah.
You have to have a very light touch to do this.
Yeah, yeah. It's something, again, sort of to practice a little bit. I tell people, you know, think about it like you're tickling the surface.
Tickling, I like that.
It's tickling it, it's barely there. And then you can kind of, you know, apply it very, very fine layers of stuff. If I'm doing something that's very detailed, I only tend to sort of do it in short bursts, because it can get a little bit, it's quite hard, it's quite exhausting, especially if it's, for me anyway, if I'm doing something that's quite large scale, I'll say I'll just do it in short bursts and then go off and do something else for a while and then come back, because you have to kind of maintain your focus and concentration. And if you really just don't feel like doing it that day, not feeling like being, you know, really meticulous, just don't do it, because you're going to muck it up. So I've got a little bit of this in there. And then starting to tidy up around the edges here. And get some grey into here. So a lot of these lines around here are a little bit rough. So I'll be trying to kind of reinstate some bits that are a bit more definite, and then leave other bits being a bit looser. So this bit down here, I think I'll go and add a little bit more into that. So I've got, this is a pale blue, that lilac. Into that. And then I've got some kind of orangey, warmer shade that's going to come up, I think, at the bottom here. So you can see it's going to take me a while, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not going to be able to finish this in the next 6 minutes.
Oh, no. I'm actually going to have a blue line here, aren't I? That's going to be blue. Okay. I didn't leave that, put that in.
For your shadow.
Yeah, so that's going to be blue in there. So if anybody wants to ask me anything generally about work or anything, just do. It's fine.
Let me double check all of these comments here really quickly. Somebody wanted to know, do you use a pencil sharpener for your pastel pencils or do you use a blade?
Oh, blade usually, because what I find, well, I haven't actually found a pencil sharpener that's that great to do it, to be fair. I'll kind of do a bit of both, but usually it's just a blade, yeah. And I don't keep them. I know some people like their blades like really sharp points. To be honest, I don't particularly. I just kind of go with what I've got. I'm really quite relaxed about it. But I seem to kind of, I don't know, I just seem to get by with sharpening bits and yeah, using blades most of the time. So this is going to be the warmer colour there. So I quite like this texture coming through, and I'm not going to get rid of that. So I'm going to leave that kind of as it is, but then add other bits on top of it. So I've got a little bit, this is more like a clean that up.
We had Romy ask, do you use a pastel fixative when you are finished with a painting?
I do, but only a very little bit. I mean, I think a general rule of thumb I found is if you're going to spray it, make sure that the can is if you kind of put the heel of your hand against the paper, yeah, make sure that the can is no closer than where your elbow is.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. You don't go right up to it, you will kill it. And I do it really quickly, spray, that's it. I will not sit there and, you know, spray really closely and stuff, because it can do terrible things to it and it'll look awful. I'm just gonna try and tidy up that little bit. I'll find my brush. There. This is where the brushes come in useful. You get little bits that stray. There.
How long would a painting like this normally take you?
Well, the bit that I've done so far was maybe about 2 days. So by the time it's finished, it'll maybe about a week, perhaps, maybe a bit less if I really sort of, but you know, that's not constant all day. So
right.
Yeah.
Taking breaks.
Yeah. To get my trainers on a run because it drives me crazy.
I do love the colors that you chose for the background.
Thank you.
It brings a nice warmth to it.
Yeah. It's going to be once it's all finished. It should be nice and yeah, warming. So this is going to go into here. And I've got another bit of blue in there. Try a little bit of this one in there.
Okay, we've got about 1 minute left.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you want to share with everyone? I know we talked about earlier, Fiona, one of her paintings was just included in the Pastel Society of America's Enduring Brilliant show. That is going to be September 3rd through the 26th in New York. So if you're in that area, you'll actually be able to see Fiona.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for the ceremony at the end of the exhibition. I think it's about the 22nd. But yeah, we're having a few days in New York, so I'm really excited.
That is exciting.
Yeah. I think I'm one of only 3 UK artists to actually be included this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think I'm the only one out of all of us that's going. Okay.
Okay.
So hopefully you can see some sort of kind of shape starting to happen there. It needs a little bit more blending.
Yeah.
Fine details in there, but you can see it's starting to kind of get there. There'll be highlights to go in, shiny bits, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
But hopefully you can see sort of the differences in different areas.
That's just beautiful.
Thank you.
So impressive.
That will be.
I like that you're directional with your blending as well.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's really, really important. Yeah, you can't go up and down or just like, oh, I'm one way, something like this. It's really about, you almost sculpt it. Yeah. So I sort of think about it. I think about pastel painting in a very three-dimensional way. I think about the texture and a lot, and about the form of things. And if you can try and bear those things in mind, it should help you.
Yeah. Well, Fiona, we are out of time on our demo. Do you want to join us back on camera?
Sure. Yeah. See if you can see me.
Hi.
It's very, very bright and sunny here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This was awesome. And I'm so glad that you were my very first experience with Art School Live. It was such a wonderful demo.
You did great. You did great.
Well, thank you so much. And then everyone, like I said, you can see Fiona at the Pastel Society of America show, and then also check out her website, which is 𝗬𝗏𝐼𝗿.com. So Fiona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple of final notes before we leave today. We have a free webinar coming up on Thursday. This is going to be 7 Essential Art Truths with legendary artist Harley Brown. I hear it's going to be amazing. And if you liked me today, you might like me again on Thursday. I'll be there with Eric hosting that one. We also have coming up Pastel Live, which is going to be coming up in September. I'm super excited for that. Also get to be part of that this year. So check that out. This is an event that's great for those that don't get to travel a lot or are unable to travel for workshops that are in person. We're going to have 25 artists who are going to do demos online. It's 4 days in your own home. It's going to be awesome. So I recommend that if you're able to join us. We also have Fall Color Week coming up. That's Eric's painting retreat. This year it's going to be out in California in Carmel and Monterey, painting the fall colors. So that's going to be super fun. And then I'm supposed to tell you about Pastel Today, which is the one I forgot about, of course. Pastel Today is our newsletter. It goes out weekly for Pastel. It's written by Kelly Kane. She does a lot of great articles on different artists, different shows that are going on. And then I've just come on board recently as the community ambassador, highlighting different things that are going on in the pastel world. Things like, if, Dakota is doing a discount on art supplies, or if, an artist has been in a show, has won an award, or if there's a society that's doing something really cool you need to know about. I'm just trying to keep everybody in the know because I love pastels and want to share that. So Thank you guys all so much for watching today. We do have a free gift for you. It is 45 pastel pointers. It is our ebook that has a lot of great information about pastels, as well as a few videos as well. So check that out. And thank you all so much for watching. Check us out and subscribe at Art School Live on YouTube. And you can also follow Eric at 𝗟𝗶𝗴𝗵𝘁. Thank you guys so much. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week.